yes. 18th we have one. Our Pradhan sir, our lecture.
Yeah,
Our
yeah, I
IRI.
know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I came to know about it from
Yes,
Dr.
yes.
Devjani Day. Yeah,
Dr. Devjani just asked me to do, share.
yeah,
It's a good at
yeah.
least. Hmm. At least
No,
we
it's
can.
yeah. I'll be speaking a lot about Dr. Pradhan
Yes,
in my own lecture,
good,
and
good.
it's if the locus research, we all owe to Dr. Pradhan about locus
Yes,
research.
very well, very well. We will never forget. None of the entomologists will forget about Dr. Pradhan,
Yes, yeah,
about his contribution on
yeah,
Hemiptera and other groups.
yes. Very true, very true.
Dr. Bhatnagar,
Sir. Yes, sir.
it's not visible.
Sir, you are unable to see us? We are able to see you. We are able to see you, sir.
Okay, ठीक है. So I'm putting it up after 5 minutes. I will join.
Fine, sir. Fine.
Dr. Bhatnagar,
Sir.
this is a vertical one. It should be horizontal. Na? Screen should be horizontal. Na? Or some or who is the presenter?
Okay, sir. We'll make it that way.
Horizontal. You just make it horizontal.
We are making. Good afternoon. I would once again like to know whether all. Good afternoon. I would like to know where I had a talk with Mr. Amirendu, Dr. Chandra, and Dr. GT Guzar. I would like to know whether Dr. Akhil, Dr. Shamita Kumar, and Dr. Raghuram has joined. Who are the other speakers? May I have the attention of Dr. Akhil, who is one of the speakers, Dr. Shamita Kumar, also a speaker, and Dr. Raghuram, also a speaker from American College, Madurai. Seems like they are yet to join. अखिल थे और रघुराम, लेकिन वो लोग बोले तो नहीं स्पीकर ऑफ किया अखिल इज आल्सो नहीं ऑन करो स्पीकर रघुराम रघुराम का फोन है उनका तो ले लो वो लोग मुझे प्रोग्राम को फोन लगाओ अखिल बोला लेकिन वो जवाब नहीं दिया
Good afternoon, Bhatna sir. I'm already here.
Okay, sir. Nice to.
I'm Akhil. Yes, Venugopal.
Nice to have you here. Welcome. Welcome to the webinar.
Thank you, sir. My display name is Akhil.
Yeah, Dr. Akhil, I will be announcing when your turn comes. And before that, I will give a brief introduction also about you.
Okay, sir.
Dr. Bhatnagar.
Sir, we can start now.
All resource persons are there. Esteemed guest.
Yes, all are there, sir. All
Dr.
are there.
Samita Kumar, Dr. Raghuram, and then
It is showing as joined, but she is yet to respond to my recent this communication here.
okay,
On
okay,
the
okay.
screen, it is showing as she is joined. Maybe she is occupied with some work. And
Okay, then she will join afterwards.
pardon, yeah, and Dr. Raghuram from Madurai, we are making a phone. He's yet to join. He's pending. We are contacting him over phone.
Okay, okay, okay.
So it is. I think 2:30 we can start. I will first give a brief introduction to the webinar. Welcome to this webinar, all our director sir and all the distinguished speaker and all the attendees. This is the second in series of the 2 webinars that we are going to organize. The webinar is titled as National Webinar on Taxonomy and its Applications, Learn from the Experts. So we have tried to collect various experts on taxonomy or its application today on this forum. And we have the 2 unscheduled changes also. One is Mr. Amulendi Pathak, IFS, who is Deputy Director of the Paints Tiger Reserve. He will be speaking first after the Dr. Kailash Chandra, Director ZSI, has given his keynote address, and also Dr. S.S. Talmale, who is a rodent expert at WRC ZSI Pune. He will speak at the end. So I will give a brief introduction about our Director ZSI. Dr. Kailash Chandra is steering ZSI as Director. He is a distinguished entomologist for the last 30 years and also an able administrator and educationist. He has served in Solan and in Himachal Pradesh and Jabalpur as well as the Andamans and Nicobars, and as director he is based in Kolkata, and he has been guiding us on various matters, and he is the author of several books and national and international conferences he has attended. Besides, he has written several research publications in national and international journals. So I will not take much time, and I invite Dr. Kailash Chandra to enlighten us with his keynote address. Dr. Chandra, sir, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. P.S. Bhatnagar.
Thank you, sir.
Esteemed experts from various fields of sciences and taxonomy, as resource persons, colleagues from Geological Survey of India, all the dear participants. I'm thankful to our officer in charge of Western Regional Center, ZSI Pune, who is organizing this national webinar on taxonomy and its applications. I welcome all our resource person and esteemed guests who are contributing their presentation. Mr. Pathak, IFS from Maharashtra Forest Department, Dr. G.T. Gujjar, to whom I am very well known for many years. He is a principal scientist and ex-head of Division of Entomology from IARI, New Delhi. And I know that he is also completed his PhD in locust.
Yeah.
That is long back,
Long back.
1980, under Dr. K.N. Malhotra.
Yes.
I'm fortunate that I was also associated in IRI for the years from 1985 to 1988. We had a lot of interaction with Gujjar sir. And thank you very much, sir, for
Thank you.
your participation in this. I think we will be having a lot of knowledge about taxonomy, its application. And I have worked in Division of Entomology, taxonomy, section taxonomy. At that time, many of the experts, Dr. Bhatia was the head of office, and then Dr. Malhotra was also head of division. So many renowned scientists in entomology under whom I have worked. I'm fortunate that today Dr. G.T. Gujjar is also with us, and he also headed the division of entomology. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And, he has worked in this our locust species of Cystosera gregaria, under Kian Malhotra, and also under late Dr. S. Pradhan, who discovered inefficacy of the neem against the locust in 1960. So all those literature are already there, and it's really a legacy which has been going on there in entomology. That time at least more than 70, 80 scientists were there, but now the strength has declined so much that we do not have those our renowned scientists in IRI. We have with us Dr. Samita Kumar, Vice Principal from Institute of Environment Education Research, Bharati Vidyapeeth, Deemed University, Pune. Thank you very much, madam, and welcome to you. Dr. Agram, who is Assistant Professor and the Postgraduate Research Development of Department of Zoology from the American College Madurai, Tamil Nadu. He is having the expertise on the birds, diversity of the behavior, as well as the ecology and the conservation. Dr. Akhil Venugopal is also present today, a senior project fellow, and he has worked on this our taxonomy of northern states, particularly on the beetles. And Dr. Talmele, well-known our colleague from Pune, who has also worked with me in Jabalpur for several years, is one of the well-known rodent experts. That's one of the major group of the mammalia. Uh, the Western Regional Center, who has organized this national webinar. I want to highlight some of the information with regard to the regional center. This regional center is one among 16 regional centers throughout India, and the headquarters of Geological Survey of India is at Kolkata. This center was established in 1950, and it's completing around 70 years by 2020. Lot of contributions are there by the regional centers. Already they have published 2 state fauna series of the Maharashtra fauna, part 1, part 2, which includes several vertebrate groups as well as the invertebrates, particularly the insects. And the last part 2 was published just 1 year before, where I have also contributed some of the chapters in the Maharashtra state. And many of those students, they completed their PhD from the regional centers. They have contributed for the description of several, means more than around 80 plus species new to the science, and several new records to India. They have experts in the fishes, insects, then crabs, and the mammals. So earlier Dr. Pradhan was also there, Dr. Mahabal, who was experts on the birds. So these were already headed our regional center. So this is a little information about the Western Regional Center, Pune, who has been contributing not only the state fauna, but they have also been working on the Western Ghat fauna, because they have this our territory, which is their jurisdiction also. Today, the national webinar organized on the principle of the taxonomy and how it is important to us. Since many of you are aware that ZSI is the premier organization on the taxonomy, which has been working for last more than 105 years of its survey, then identification and documentation, then the discovery of the species from throughout India pertaining to all 36 states, union territories. We have also been undertaking the survey of all the ecosystems, so whether it's a freshwater ecosystem, then marine, then our estuarine ecosystem, mangrove, all our ecosystem, desert ecosystem, semi-arid. And I'm happy to share here, at least with the participants, that with regard to all these ecosystems, we have compiled the information. It's already available in ZSI website. Apart from these 2 areas, we have also been working on all the protected areas of the countries. That includes the national park, wildlife sanctuaries, community reserves, as well as the conservation reserves. Why we should study the life, why we should know the names of the plants and animals, and why it is important to us. We should all understand it, because until unless we have any name or identification. We do not have any relevance in any of the ecosystems. And all these are very much required, even if you are going to have the pest control of any of the species, even for their identification, whether that is a different strain, then their what are their parasites, parasitoids, predators. So all those species, we should know the name. And for the natural resources, one way also, it is very important to know their names. If we do not have the resources, then we will not be able to have livelihood for the human being. And since it's a complete food chain, and each and every species interrelated in the food wave, so we have the significance of all the species which are existing in the nature. Even the virus which has caused the corona pandemic throughout the world, it's just invisible species of the virus, and it's just one of the strain of the corona. Uh, then we should also know it, and it's very, very difficult to control it until this, and that is because of the mutation. It's spreading a lot, and several lakhs of people they have died, and more than million people are already infected by that, even within our country. Uh, the economy is suffering. We are having the loss of at least 1,000 human being every day. So taxonomy is very, very important, and then only we can have their vaccine to treat our human being or each and every citizen. Even for the protection of all these species in our protected areas, through our International Union of Conservation and Nature, many of the species have been included. Their population may be increasing or decreasing. Then those species, if we do not know, in a group, we cannot do it. So they are also very much required for the conservation of those species. There are many invasive species. Those species are also getting introduced in our country through various media, maybe through transportation. Since this entire our world has become the global village, earlier those transport facilities were not there, and that is also one of the causes for this epidemic of our corona in almost all the countries of the world. Since CBD, when it was enacted in 1992, that is called Convention of the Biological Diversity, Rai Genero Conference. And since then we have also started working on the biodiversity. And there are two major organizations like ZSI, it's working on the entire fauna of the country. And similarly, the Botanical Survey of India, they are working on the entire flora of the country. So there are many other organizations like ICR, and they have different bureaus like NBIR, and they are working on the different agriculture insects. So all the institutions, whether ICR, ICMR, then CSIR, including ZSI and BSI, they have been working to compile and collate the information of the all the biodiversity of the country. And there are the two international treaties. One is the IT targets, and there are the sustainable development goals which are enacted. And being a partner for the United Nations, we have to take a lot of our actions with regard to the sustainable development goals. There are 17 goals which are to be adopted uh, by 2015, and they are to be completed by 2013. Out of these 17, three are very, very important. One is the goal 13, that is the climate actions. And there is already a lot of impact on the climate change, on the biodiversity that has to be studied. And then how we can mitigate all those measures. That is, then there is a sustainable goal 14, that is called life below water. So we should know what are the species which are present in freshwater ecosystem, then the marine ecosystem. I'm happy to share here that from freshwater ecosystem, in all ecosystem, whether riverine, then ponds, then lakes, river, wetlands, ZSI has compiled information, and 9,456 species have been reported. Similarly, for the marine ecosystem, 20,444 species have been reported by ZSI. And similarly, for the Aichi targets, there are 20 Aichi targets. Most of them are related to the biodiversity conservation, and each and every country should have this strategic plan for the biodiversity from 2011 to 2020, which is also called as a biodiversity decade. And 2020, I hope that you may be aware, it's also being called as a super biodiversity year. So we have a lot of significance of the uh, biodiversity in our life, and then it is very important to name all those species of the plants and animals, and each and every citizen of all the country, they should be aware about the values of all the species, and that's why these IT targets have been uh, given to all the countries who have signed it. Many of you might have heard the name of Edwards Wilson, who is a professor from Harvard University, and he has cautioned that over the last half a billion years, the planet perhaps there are many millions of year species were there, and now those species which were getting extinct one in several years, that rate has become very faster, and it has multiplied in several folds, even 100 and 1,000 times it has multiplied because of the anthropogenic impacts. So extinction and loss of the biodiversity is one of the important factor. Even our crops are also not being conserved, and particularly the local strains in various areas in our country. And that's why taxonomics taxonomy provides the discovery and identification of these basic units and the relationships. Uh, One more aspect I just want to highlight it. You might have heard the name of the Ronald Ross, 1897, who discovered the malaria parasite, and he proved that malaria was not transmitted from the mul. Mulch means it's a dirt, and that's why the name of the disease was given the malaria. And during the year 1922, he was given the Nobel Prize on the physiology and medicine, because he discovered that it was transmitted to the one of the protozoan species, that is a plasmodium. So we, all of us, particularly the present generation, they should know how the taxonomy is important. And I'm happy that I'm working in such a department where taxonomy is the main stream, and all our scientists, as well as the staff members, they have been working for the describing of the new species, and knowing the species which have not yet been recorded from the area, and then from our country, it may be endemic species. So out of 1,02,161 species which have been updated so far by Geological Survey of India, around 28,000 plus species are endemic to our country. As far as the taxonomy is concerned, it was actually the principle of taxonomy was given by the Meyer in 1953, and all of us mostly we have been following the Meyer taxonomy book. And from actually this naming of the species, that started from the Vedic period itself, before even 600 BC, and those names like Charaka and Parastapada, even before BC 500 BC, those names were given. So that classification was available from that time onwards. So even after that, Aristotle in the year 384 to 322 BC started classifying the organism. And then later on, the modern taxonomy, to whom we called as a father of taxonomy, Carl Linnaeus, from 1707 he was born, and he was there up to 1778. He introduced binomial classification and the binomial system of nomenclature, and since then we have been following the binomial classification. And you will be surprised to know that he himself has got the credit of describing 7,700 species of the plants and 4,400 species of the animals. So around 12,000 species are only in the credit of the Linnaeus, to whom we call as the father of taxonomy. So whenever we undertake any of the taxonomic studies of any of the group of the plants or animals, first we have to give the citation of the Linnaeus, and in his book Systema Naturae, he has started classifying this life into two actually in part, that is prokaryota and the eukaryota. The prokaryota included the bacteria as well as the archaea, and then eukaryota, that is called fungi, protista, plantae, and animalia. So our group of the protista and animal were included in the eukaryote. And later on, several classifications were given by the various our scientists. Many of all of us, particularly in student, is we always confuse taxonomy, what is the systematic, what is the classification, and like our when we talk about the taxonomy, so that is actually theory and practice of classifying the organisms is called as the taxonomy. And what is the systematic? It's a scientific study of all the kinds of diversity of organisms, and all of them are having interrelationship among them. That is called as a systematic. And the classification is the grouping of the organisms into the classes owing to their joint possession of the attributes. And classification is also showing the past relationship between the organisms and themselves. So we should know the understanding of the name, not only the name of the species, but also their relationship among themselves, as well as the evolution that we call as the phylogeny. And that's why there are different type of taxonomy are also given, like alpha taxonomy, beta taxonomy, then gamma taxonomy. I think many of our experts, esteemed experts, they would be giving the information in detail about that. And there are several types also. So whenever we describe any new species to the science, so that first and foremost in a specimen we call it the holotype.
Sir, we are unable to hear you.
Now, is it all right?
Yes, sir. Now it is all right.
Okay, okay. So I just talked about this alpha, beta, and the gamma taxonomy, and there is a set rules of the nomenclature which has been given by the International Code of Geological Nomenclature, that is ICGN, that started from 1961, and there are different taxonomies like traditional taxonomy, then phylogenetic classification also given. So basically, we should know each and everything before going to the field, and we should be well prepared. What are we going to do? What are our objective? Which group we are going to collect it? And for that, training is very much required. And I'm happy that ZSI has been imparting the training to all the students and the researchers who are interested to contribute on the any group of the animals, starting from the protozoa to mammalia, whether it's a collection, preservation, identification technique is concerned, or the collection, curation, or the preservation is concerned. Then we have been publishing the catalog of all those species. Already 80 plus our checklists are available in ZSI website, and for describing all those species. And we have the reference collection, then type collection. Already in ZSI, we have 5.6 million specimens of all the group of animals starting from protozoa to mammalia, of which 3.8 million specimens are already identified, pertaining to around 50,000 species which are known from our country. And as far as the type specimens are concerned, around 17,000 specimens pertaining to 5,000 species of the types are also available with ZSI. So whoever are the experts and the students, if they are working on different group of animals, they may contact ZSI. They can access all our collection, even FRI, IRI, Division of Entomology is also there. They can also visit those areas. They have very good collection. Fortunate that have worked in IRI, Division of Entomology. It's a well-maintained collection in IRI and FRI. And who are working particularly on insects, they can access that collections. So there are several actually rules, appendages, then glossary, nomenclature in ICJN. We should understand. Then only we can have the basic knowledge about International Code of Geological Nomenclature, and then only one can identify those species. ZSI, as we understand, there are different type of the biodiversity, whether it's ecosystem diversity, species diversity, genetic diversity. We have been working on the ecosystem diversity, and in almost all the ecosystems checklist is already available in the website. Species diversity, as I have already mentioned, more than 1,02,000 species have been reported and known from our country. You can see the detail in our one of the publication, that is Animal Discoveries, and that is published every year. And in that, all the tables, how many species of viruses groups are there, that one can find it. And now, actually, there is a need for integrated approach by all the scientists who are working on various fields of the animals, maybe the insects, because insect is having the maximum proportion and the maximum share of the species. More than 65,000 species of insects have been recorded from our country. So we have also taken over, we have also undertaken the work on the molecular studies, and already 6,500 DNA barcode that we call as a digital sequence informations have been uploaded in the NCBI database, and there is one of the data international database where you can get DNA sequence of all the species internationally, and we have the repository. It's notified by the government of India, and we have this forensic laboratory for the study of the wildlife seized our species. So if they are sent to us, we can identify, and that's why JDSI has been given the status of one of the authentic organization for identification of the species. So any of the information with regard to animals, I think if it is from the regional station, or if they do not get the information, they can refer to the headquarter Geological Survey of India, and they would be getting a lot of information. So at present, actually, there are lot of gap areas. If you go and see all the group of animals, particularly the invertebrates, we do not have the complete information, and our participants and students who want to contribute for the taxonomy, they may take up some groups, and they would be getting a lot of new species, new discoveries. And one most interesting thing is that if any one of us or any scientist or a student, they describe new species to the science, like Linnaeus, they also become the immortal. So their name will exist as long as this earth is there. So my message is to all our participants, particularly the youngsters, is that they should start uh, undertaking the taxonomic studies seriously, and they may start working on, first they should know what is the database, then they should start working on different group of animals. So we require a lot of actually experts to write fauna of India, which are still lacking in many groups. Then cataloging required, revisionary studies required, then micro and micro taxonomy also very much part of it. Then only we'll be able to fill all the gaps, whether it's area wise or the group wise, to understand the actually complete information of our biodiversity in India. With this, again, I thank the organizer, Dr. Bhatnagar and his team for having this national webinar on the taxonomy. Thank you very much, and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, sir, for your detailed and enlightening lecture and the best wishes. Um, Let me also apprise everyone present here, speakers and the attendees, that we have received close to 1,000 registrations for this webinar, out of which 250 are here on the Google Meet, and the remaining ones are attending on the YouTube. because it is being live streamed on the YouTube. Taking the first in the series of speaker, we have Mr. Amalendu Pathak, who is an Indian Forest Service officer. He received his IFS training at the Indira Gandhi National Forest Academy in Dehradun, which is a constituent of our MOAFCC only. And he is an IFS of the Maharashtra cadre. Not only he is an IFS, but also he is an MSc in forestry from Forest Research Institute in Dehradun. Again, a constituent of MOEFCC. And right now, presently he is deputy director of the Page Tiger Reserve in Maharashtra. Prior to that, he was at the Navegaon Nazira Tiger Reserve in also in Maharashtra. And before that, he was at the Melghat Tiger Reserve, looking after the wildlife work. So he brings in a long serial experience in wildlife conservation and management. And it's my pleasure to welcome you, sir. Not only we are official on official matters, I have been interacting with him, but he is also a personally a very good friend of mine. So welcome to you, sir, for this webinar. You may please start.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatnagar. Good afternoon, everybody. Actually, I'm not a taxonomist, so basically my talk would be based on the experience and the role that I'm having in forest department, especially with regard to the wildlife conservation. So to begin with, I would say that Dr. Director Sir has laid out a very well outline for this today's webinar and his inaugural remarks. He has very well guided us. He has established the role of taxonomy not just in conventional science but also in the field of biodiversity conservation, resource utilization, and other aspects related to conservation. So, I would like to say that as we know that taxonomy is the science of biological classification of living organisms, extinct organisms, and it is really essential to establish to understand, to establish what role they have and the biodiversity and how to conserve them. With regard to the conservation, we need taxonomy. So, likewise in forestry sector also, we have identified most of the plants. I will not say all, but most of them. Then, as I said, ecologically, it is very important to taxonomically classify plants and animals, establish their relationship with regard to the habitat and environment. And it is a method of identification and communication. We communicate between each other. We identify species. We communicate to concerned authorities that maybe whether it is Zoological Survey of India as or Botanical Survey of India, Forest Department, Forest Research Institute, we communicate with each other. That is the basis of the scientific advances that we are doing in our country with regard to taxonomy, as Director Sir has laid out. Then it also gives an idea about the sequence of evolution of flora and fauna from their simpler, more primitive type to the more advanced, complex type, the recent advancements, and over a period of history, the role that they have achieved, they have come up to in the ecological setup, the ecosystem. I will say that I mean, all of us, we are inborn taxonomists. We like to classify things, we like to identify things, categorize them in different domains, setups. We classify things at our own home also. So it is similar to what taxonomists do. It is required for biodiversity, and it is an integral role of biodiversity conservation. Now we are living in an era of development and space science, as we say. We are going into the space and exploring outer other Earth objects and outer space material, other planets, stars, etc. So the thing is, there are still hundreds or maybe thousands of species which are not yet discovered by us human beings. So some of them may even become extinct before we even discover them, come to know of them. And this lack of knowledge, this lack of taxonomic prowess has been termed by the Convention of Biodiversity as the taxonomic impediment. So we are running short of taxonomical experts, scientists, and researchers to say. And about forest species, I will say that in forestry sector, most of the species have been identified. They are commercially utilized, but there are still some gaps. There are still some species which, for subsistence of rural population, providing them the basic urban-based industries with which they can have their livelihood. So we have some species. For example, I would say rattans or canes, so that is a sector we still need to develop in. I mean, as a country also, India has still a lot to do in terms of bamboo-based industries and development, as we have seen in Southeast Asian countries or China, which is the leader in it. So, taxonomic studies will help us in this regard for the conservation of such species which are found in remote areas, the development, commercial utilization in a sustainable manner, which will benefit the livelihood of the local population. Now, taxonomy provides a basic conservation practice knowledge and biological resources that we have in our country. As we know, India is rich in biodiversity. It has plenty of biodiversity hotspots and flora and fauna. The number is very high considering the geographical area that we have in our country. So we need more taxonomists to document this whole diversity which is existing in our country. For example, I would say that this year we had three new species of horned frogs discovered from the northeast India. Then previously we had a dwarf snakehead fish found from the northeast. Then some other species have been discovered from the Western Ghats recently. So we are seeing it that every day, every year, we are seeing new species, new discoveries that we still have left in our country to do in terms of taxonomical research. I would just give you some examples of my own experience, my own knowledge that I came across with regard to taxonomy. Well, while I was posted in Melghat Tiger Reserve, I saw eastern grass owl for the first time in that tiger reserve. Now, eastern grass owl is a owl species similar to the barn owl, and mainly it is found in the Pacific Ocean towards the West Pacific, Australia, and the Southeast Asian countries. Now, in India, we have the reporting of eastern grass owl near the northeast and the eastern eastern coastal areas of the country, but not in the central Indian landscape. So that owl species was a good discovery for the checklist of Melghat Tiger Reserve in that 2016 duration when I found first observed it. Then I would quote an example from my association with the Zoological Survey of India, Western Region Office, Pune. Dr. Bhatnagar and his team came to the Navegaon Nagzira Tiger Reserve, where I was working as the deputy director in 2016 to 18. So in 2017, while doing their research studies, they came across a specimen of lesser mouse-tailed bat. So that bat was found in a cave in a remote area of the national park, Navegaon Nagzira Tiger Reserve. So that was the first specimen discovered in central India. Usually, its habitat and distribution is up to the Western Ghats. Then another example I came across this year is Indian brown mongoose, which is usually found in the southern India. But first time while doing a phase 4 exercise in the tiger reserve, we observed this Indian brown mongoose in our own Page Tiger Reserve of Maharashtra. So these are some of the examples with my own experience. I can tell that we still have a lot to discover, a lot to do about in the terms of taxonomical advantages of our country. And as Director Sir Chandra Sir has told that tiger reserves, PA areas are rich in biodiversity, and ZSI, BSI, and other organizations are working to know the biodiversity, the wealth that we are having in our tiger reserves or say protected areas. So various forest departments likewise are involved in this practice, and systematic taxonomy efforts are going on across the Indian landscape to unearth this treasure of biodiversity. So, what we require as forest department, I can say that we require scientists, researchers, and taxonomists to not just help us, but also take the lead, take the initiation in unearthing this biological diversity that we are having in our country. And forest department, forest areas, PA areas are a good source of exploring this diversity. So, with this knowledge, with this acquired knowledge, we can advance in taxonomical uh, status or gains that we can have for our country, and which will result in better conservation and management efforts. And of course, if we want to conserve the resources, the biodiversity that we have, we should know about it first. I mean, knowing the name, knowing the status, the extent, the distribution, the ecological role that these species have. So, taxonomy is the need of the hour, and in forest department and all other concerned agencies, I would say that we need a coordinated effort. We need joint efforts to unearth this biological treasure that we have, and obviously such lectures, such webinars will help in taking this initiative forward. So that is all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pathak. Very nice to hear you about your first-hand conservation and management experiences, and for highlighting the role of the problem of taxonomic impediment, because the number of species is so high, so and the taxonomist few, so obviously that is a problem. But you have rightly pointed out taxonomic impediment, which is of course an issue. And every year, as Director Sir has pointed out, that we bring out a book on new discoveries. And similar efforts are made elsewhere in the world also, where the new species are published in various journals and other publication outlets. So I thank you once again very much for being with us and for enlightening us with your very first-hand field observations and experiences. The next speaker in this talk today is Dr. G.T. Gujar, who is a retired principal scientist and head of the division of entomology from ICMR New Delhi. He has more than 37 years of distinguished service, and he is a visiting research professor at the DSC Institute of Advanced Studies in Science and Technology in Guwahati in 2016. He has also been the postdoctoral fellow at the Marie Curie EU postdoctoral fellow in UK and Germany during some earlier years. And his PhD thesis way back in 1980 is related to protein turnover in the desert locust. As we know that we had locust problem in many of the states, including Maharashtra, in the recent times. So we have requested Dr. Gujar to share his experiences and vast knowledge with us in this webinar. And he has also served as an expert on GM crop risk assessment and management and on IPM related panels in government and educational institutions. Now I will invite Dr. G.T. Gujar to deliver his talk, and he will also show a PPT. Dr. G.T. Gujar, please.
Yeah. Good afternoon to everybody, Dr. Kailash Chand, Dr. Bhatnagar, Dr. Amlendu Pathak, other resource persons, participants. It's my great pleasure to be associated with this webinar. I hope you are all hearing me well. Is it true? Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Hello.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah.
I can hear
Okay. With this, thanks, Bhatnagar, for such a generous introduction. And with this, I'll come down to my PowerPoint presentation. So here is my PowerPoint presentation. Just a minute. I have some problem. Okay. Then now, window. Sorry. Yeah. Just a minute. How come I am unable to?
Sir, you have to open your PPT.
Yes, I have opened it. I have opened it.
And
Okay.
right side there are icons which you have to click on. And then present now.
Okay. Just a minute. I'll do so. Okay. Is it visible? No.
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Just a minute. Uh, yes. Okay. It's there now.
No, sir.
Yeah, and I'm putting it on a PowerPoint presentation. Now, thank you very much. Let us start, make a beginning here. And I'll be talking about the desert locust, which has been in news in last 6 to 8 months. And little bit about taxonomy, little bit more about the research that has been carried out in this country, and then the desert locust management. So if you look at the desert locust, its taxonomic position that it belongs to the family Acridiidae. Are you here? Are you seeing this presentation?
Yes, we can see.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Hello.
We can see your presentation. Yes. Dr. Gujar, we can
okay.
see your presentation. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes,
So,
sir. Yes.
and I like, as you say that acridiids are those are like grasshoppers, but they have a short antenna. Antenna is less than the half of their length. They have a tympanum membrane on the first abdomen segment, which is fused with a metathorax. And the third important character is that they have a three-segmented tarsus. Acridiids, they are both winged as well as wingless, and wingless or short-winged acridiids do not fly, or they are far more localized, bit of jumping type. But the winged one are the ones which fly, because they have a well-developed wings, and they also migrate to the long distances. So if you look at the differences between grasshopper and locust, you have locusts are different from grasshopper in having polyphenisms. That means they have two phases, and these two phases are named as solitaria and gregaria. The grasshoppers don't have any of these two phases. The locusts are supposed to have evolved about 6 million years ago as a swarming phase, and they are native of Africa. During the process of evolution, they lost their behavior plasticity to become sedentary grasshopper, and then again over the evolution period, they lost their color plasticity to become the grasshopper. But then the sedentary grasshopper, they acquired once again a behavioral plasticity to become a swarming type, and swarming locusts have both. They are both having a versatility, like they have behavior plasticity as well as color plasticity. Now, swarming locusts or migratory locusts are having both phases, that as I told you earlier. But then grasshopper won't have those kind of two phases. Now here is a clear-cut distinction between what is solitary phase and what is gregarious phase, which is discovered by way back in early 20s by Dr. Boris, the Russian entomologist Boris Yuvarov. Now, solitary locust names, they have a cryptic coloration which matches their background, green, They are mostly green. They are slow walking type. They have larger eyes and a longer antenna. The names of gregarious locusts are having aposematic coloration, very strong coloration, which is distinct from their background. They have more of the mechano and taste receptors. Of course, these taste receptors, they participate in their gregarious behavior, and they are quite active, quite flying type. Now, as far as adults is concerned, solitary locusts, they are bit thinner, and they have a low fat deposits. The hind legs are longer, wings are longer. They they feed on a restricted diet or whatever available, and they are active during dusk time or dawn time. But in case of adults of gregarious locusts, they are a bit fat, having a rich deposit of inside. They groom frequently. They are often seen as cleaning their mouth parts with their legs, and they are more active during daytime. They have a broad range of food to eat. These are the broad distinctions of two phases of the locust. Now, uh, what is the basis of polyphenism in this locust? You might have observed or might have read somewhere that there are hormonal changes, there are serotonin content, which is far more released in the gregarious phase. And some other biochemical changes are also reported. Now, basic initiator of phases is actually the stimuli, like olfactory stimuli or visual stimuli or tactile stimuli. And out of these stimuli, various kinds of stimuli, visual stimuli and tactile stimuli plays a very important role for the locust to become more gregarious and to migrate. Now, these two stimuli, they help in crowding, and once the crowding occurs and as it gets more and more, it initiate the changes which are neurosignal kinds of changes. These changes then affect the gene expression. Now, remember that the basis of polyphenism in locust is not due to the change in the gene or type of the gene itself, but the gene expression. And this gene expression is a epigenetic modification that is in the at the gene level. This epigenetic gene modification is caused by DNA methylation or histone modification or microsomal RNAs. Now, all these changes in gene expression and production of hormones are interrelated. Now, epigenetic modification that takes place as a result of crowding, that leads to a behavioral changes, and these changes are very fast enough. As far as color changes are concerned, they take a lifetime, longer period, and for muscle and skeletal changes to occur in a gregarious phase or in a solitary phase, they take around 2 to 3 generations. Now, these phases, let me be very clear, they are heritable changes. They can be interchangeable, but then they will take time. Next one is, as you might be aware, that there are a large number of locusts which are important to agriculture, and they are all reported. Some of them are reported in India also. But most important of them are, to my mind, is migratory locusts, Locusta migratoria, Bombay locust, Nomadic succinta or Patanga succinta, and desert locust. Desert locust has become most important of all times, and you might have read or heard that we had a locust swarm in the month of December 2019. Normally, This kind of locust swarm in the month of December or winter months was a surprise one, and it doesn't occur during that time. But normally, locust swarms comes in the month of June, July in India, and especially they are located near Rajasthan. If you look at the history of locusts or locust swarms, or the locust mention is found in a biblical, in epical scriptures. They are reported to be mentioned in Bible or in Indian ancient Indian scriptures also. But then documentation of locusts on a scientific basis was done in 1890 by Coates. And in early part of the 20th century, from 1900 onward, we had so many locust swarms every year, practically every year. And during 1926 to 1931, there was a locust swarms which took the shape of a plague, and it remained for 5 years, caused a damage as much as around 770 crore rupees at 2014 prices. Now, during this period also in the state of Hyderabad, the locust swarms, unprecedented locust swarms came in the state of Hyderabad. And these locust swarms consisted of desert locust as well as Bombay locust. Now, realizing the importance of locust, that time the government of India or imperial government started a scheme on desert locust, and this scheme was initiated at the Punjab Agriculture College, Lalpur, in 1930s or 31, under the able guidance of Mia Afzal Hussain. These are some of the landmarks which I would like to bring to your notice. That, like for instance, in 1939, a locust warning organization was developed with a headquarter in Karachi. Now, today we had around 10 to 11 locust warning offices spread in Rajasthan, and most of them are in Rajasthan, and one or two are in Gujarat. Realizing the importance that locusts are the problem of many other countries, in 1955, FAO established Desert Locust Control Committee to coordinate the locust activities across the nations. And in 1964, FAO had organized three regional commissions, and India has belongs to Southwest Commission for controlling the desert locust. This commission has four countries like India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran. The To strengthen the locust research work, way back in 1957, a field station on investigation on locusts was established in Bikaner, and it was asked to work on rearing, biology, ecology, behavior, toxicity studies, monitoring, and control. And this locust center at Bikaner came out with some good number of publications. But most of the publications that you will see in India with good visibility are those which came from the Division of Entomology, IRI. And the impetus to the locust research was given by Dr. Yas Pradhan in early 1940s. If you look at the history of last 5 decades, or from 1940s to 1995 or 1990s, you will find that these are the main who matters, like Mia Abdul Hussain, who was the first to organize the scheme of Imperial Council of Agriculture Research on locust control. You had M.L. Runwal, then Rao Bahadur Y. Ramchandra Rao, H.S. Pruthi, who became the first imperial entomologist, worked as a locust entomologist for some time, S. Pradhan, and then Dr. Ken Mehrotra. Now, early studies were more restricted to work on biology, food, feeding behavior of the locust. After it became it became clear that the locusts that we are seeing are having two phases, and these are not the two species which used to be believed by some people at that time. It is hats off to Boris Uyarov, who confirmed the polyphenism in locust, and then this became clear that these are not two species, but this is a one species, two phases. Now, during this time, means early half of 20th century, most of the studies were field-related studies, observation under field conditions. And some studies were also carried out on taxonomy. And many of these studies in taxonomy were more related to the morphometrics, especially the eye stripes, coloration, the tibia-femur ratios to determine whether the locust swarms or locust outbreak is likely to take place, to be migratory in nature or not. Now, and the credit for this thing goes to Y. Ramchandra Rao, Dr. M.L. Runwal, and many other scientists like Dr. R.K. Bhanother and R.K. Chettiar. Now, these are the kind of the morphometrics that they studied at that time. And you can look at this tibia and femur ratio, and this ratio will decide how much, if there is a presence of more than 70% individuals having a ratio of more than 2.16, then they say that the desert locust is likely to take a gregarious form and likely to migrate. Now, after Uvarov's theory of locust, M.L. Runwal worked on this aspect, and he presented a biological side to phase theory. And later on, many more studies on anatomy were also carried out in Division of Entomology. Bharadwaj and Banerjee worked on elucidated circulatory system as well as nervous system, and this work was very essential to understand how these systems are functioning. Later, more important physiological and biochemical studies were carried out by many other scientists, and especially late Professor Dr. K.N. Mehrotra. So if you look at this picture, you will find so many different physiological systems, organs, and almost every organ, every physiological system was touched upon during the studies. For instance, insect nutrition studies acquired more importance during 1970s. The both qualitative as well as quantitative aspect of insect nutrition, both in terms of the nutritional parameters as well as quantitative aspect of the food intake, were studied during this time. Now, we also had a very novel approach of knowing how the amino acids or what are the essential amino acids required in the diet of the desert locust. And Minu Dang in 1989, she used a very novel approach of injecting C14 glucose, and wherever the C14 goes, those the amino acids that are labeled with C14 will be a non-essential amino acids. Now, interestingly, these studies showed that there is a uniqueness in desert locust in that the threonine, which is normally an essential amino acid, was found to be actually a non-essential amino acid, because the C14 glucose had gone or was taken up by the pathways that led to the formation of threonine. Now, these studies on nutrition help in elucidating the phagostimulant and phagodeterrents. The result is that we were in position to tell or use this phagostimulant or phagodeterrent effectively to some extent for insect control. Now, way back in early 60s, Pradhan reported that neem kernel suspension is a very effective antioxidant for the adult desert locust. And in 70s, I am told, I was a student in 1973, but in 1960s, late 60s, I was told that when desert locusts came to IRI or Delhi IRI campus, the swarms were the crop were protected by spraying neem kernel suspension, as well as by making a lot of noise that you might have seen in the newspaper or might have seen on the TV or newspaper. The result of these studies led to the isolation of active principles, like azadirachtin was isolated by Butterworth and Morgan in 1968, melantriol by Lewis et al. 1967. Now, besides these two important antioxidants, the other antioxidants like giganticin from Calotropis, gigantea, aqua, or there is one another, lycorin, from Amarylioides plants were isolated. We also came to know about the phagostimulants, and these phagostimulants form the basis when we were saying the nutritional parameters. Now, you are all well aware that the nervous system is the most important system, and the transmission of impulse through nerve cord or at a synapse uh, is very well elucidated in 19th century, late 19th century or early 20th century. Now, this insecticide are known to work on a nervous system, and hence, hello, yeah, uh, uh, and hence the mode of action studies were carried out on various insecticides to elucidate their effect on the nervous system. And this study started way back in 1966 with Rangarao and Pradhan. Uh, yeah, if you look at the transmission of impulse across the synapse, it is biochemical in nature. Now, you must have heard about acetylcholine as a neurotransmitter. And this acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter which transmit the impulse across the synapse, across the gap between two nerves. And this is a classical case of how the acetylcholine is formed as well as acetylcholine is utilized. Now, Dr. Ken Mehrotra and his colleague and many other students, they work on various aspects of characterization of acetylcholinesterase, an enzyme which break down the acetylcholine once the job is done by the acetylcholine. Now, and the specificity of insecticidal action is attributed to the inhibition of acetylcholinesterase by different insecticide. Now, another enzyme is choline acetyltransferase, and this enzyme participate in synthesis of acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter. Now, this is also a target of developing the insecticide. Unfortunately, there is not much activity, not much development that occurred, but we could characterize this enzyme in desert locust. These are some of the studies which were carried out by colleagues in acetylcholinesterase in desert locust, which I talked about. They are another important organ which was studied is neuroendocrine system. You all know that the insects have a unique, or insect or arthropods have a unique neuroendocrine system, which is quite different from that we have. They have a juvenile hormone or ecdysones, and this Dr. Subramaniam and Rao, they work on the elucidating the mode of action of azadirachtin as an insect growth regulator. And what they found out is azadirachtin affect the secretion of a neurohormone which we call PTTH, or prothoracotropic hormones, from the brain. It is another important study system is circulatory system. Unlike vertebrates, insects have an open circulatory system, and their circulatory system consists of cells and humoral system. Now, hemocytes are well characterized in insects, but in humoral parts like ions and in amino acids, carbohydrates were less characterized at that time. So the studies were carried out on knowing what is the amino acid contained or protein characterization, and unique and new aspect was that in insects, in desert locusts, high molecular weight proteins are synthesized faster than the low molecular weight protein, and this is a unique mechanism. Now, you might have heard a little bit about the sugars. Insects have a unique sugar called trehalose, and this trehalose is a storage sugar. This sugar is used by the insects for using for their flight, for getting the energy during their flight. They also use fat, lipid, during their long drawn flights. Now, characterization of the trehalase, the enzyme that works to break down trehalose into glucose part, and then glucose are fed into the Krebs cycle to generate ATP molecules, was worked out in our division. Now, you had studies done on various aspects of flight energetics, like working on characterizing the giant mitochondria or amino acids, various amino acids. Insect integument is like a skeleton in human body. Only thing is we have a skeleton inside our body. Insects have a skeleton outside their body, and this is a very one of the target sites. And this target site was studied in detail for its permeability to the insecticide by Soroush Tuli as early as in 1968. P. Arjun Rao used entirely different approach of using electrophysiological properties and relating these electrophysiological properties to the insecticidal action. Now, you had series of insecticide toxicology or toxicity and metabolism paper coming out during those times to understand how the insecticides are working, how they are affecting the locust, and are they effective against locust or not. Now, these studies led to some extent working, helping the locust control. But then most of the time, as far as I know, the locusts were used as an ideal animal for studying the basic aspect during those times. Now, coming to the insect locust control, you will find that the locust control needs to be tackled on a very large scale and in a very short period of time. Now, locusts are spread over nearly 1/5 of the land mass and about 1/10 of the global population is affected. Here is a picture which shows the number of countries that are affected, and most of the countries that are affected are those in Africa, some in the Persian Gulf, and then our South Asia or West South Asia. Now, these green dots shows that these are the high breeding sites where the locust breeding takes place. And normally the locust swarms comes all the way from the Horn of Africa, Somalia, Ethiopia. They fly down towards Yemen, then Oman, and Iran and Pakistan, and to India. Now, if you look at the history of locust swarms, you will find that from 1990 to 1960, the locust swarms used to become at a very regular interval, and they used to take a size of a plague. All the time high in their density, all the time present over number of years. Later on, from 1960s, locust swarms used to occur, but at a irregular interval or at the interval of 5 or 7 to 10 years. And the occurrence of or frequency of occurrence of plague was relatively less from 1960s onward. And it is likely that the locust research work on locusts got bogged down or was not diverted towards pest management, towards its management. Now, what happened in 2018 and 19 is that there is a Indian nano, just like Pacific El Nano in the Pacific Ocean. In the Arabian Sea, or there are there are storms which have occurred because of this Indian Nano, and this Nano has led to lot of rains during the month of June to December during 2018 and 19, and these rains cause a congenial environment for locust breeding activity. The result is that swarming of locust lead was so much, or locust activity was as much as 400-fold in Africa, and in some places these locust swarms led to the quite a high increase as 8,000-fold. This led to the swarming and led to the locust migration to India in early December or in the month of winters. Now, this is little bit about the information about the swarms. Swarms number can be very very high. It can be in numbers. The swarms can be in many kilometers, in many square kilometer area, or they travel very fast. There are some records that the swarms from Africa went as far as Britain, or some swarms from Africa went as far as
Sir, your sound has stopped in the slides. Have gone back, I think. Sir, your sound has got muted. We are unable to hear you. You please unmute, sir.
Sir, please unmute yourself, sir.
okay, right. Uh,
Please unmute, sir. We are unable to hear you.
do you hear me now? Do you hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you now.
Okay. Okay. So here is
Disha Sharma, don't unmute the speaker. Sorry, don't mute the speaker.
Sir, you are showing the relationship with the Indian Ocean dipole. Again muted, sir.
Disha Sharma, please don't mute the speaker.
it is okay. This is sorry, man. Sorry, something else has occurred. Okay, here it is, and I hope I am able to. Do you see my presentation? No.
No.
Hello.
No,
Do you see my presentation?
Sir, no, sir, no.
Presentation.
Okay. Probably here now. Now you are saying it. Okay. Are you saying now?
Not yet.
Are you hearing me? Are you hearing
We
me?
can hear you and your presentation will start, I suppose.
Okay. Here it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. All right.
You can go to the Indian Ocean district.
Yeah. This is it. And then this is a Indian, and because of this Indian Ocean dipole,
Yes, yes.
we had a congenial environment in the Africa, and that led to the swarming towards India. And we had the locust swarms way back in 2018, and they were high in 2019. Now, from 2019 onward, the locust swarms were high enough. There were inundative swarms all the way coming from the breeding sites in Baluchistan or in the Gulf of Aden or Gulf of Persian Gulf. And the result is that we face the swarms right from the December to until July, August. Now, some of these swarms may have also come up from the breeding site in the run of Kutch, because there are some good breeding site there also. These swarms have caused a lot of damage to the crop vegetations, to horticulture crops too, And you might have seen the you might have seen the visuals like this. Now, this led to a lot of public outcry, and on a very conservative estimate, I could find out that around 75 to 100 crore rupees were spent only on using insecticide. Uh, but uh, 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 but the crop damage is reported to be around 700 to 1,000 crore in Rajasthan and other states affected by the locust. Now, basic requirement of a control, organizing a locust control on a very large scale, is to have a good idea of survey of the locust area. And these locust surveys are carried out by various types of survey, where walking by inspection by walking, or vehicle transaction, or aerial surveys are also done. And the real-time data is fed into a website which is designed by FAO, and these website analyzes the data which is coming from the surveyors, and depending upon the vegetation and rainfall, they also give their estimate of what kind of storms are likely to be. Now, if you look at the mist control operations or management aspect, the one important aspect is one can trap the insects in a place where they are bred. And this is a very good idea, and this idea was thought way back in 1977. Now, gregarious locust hoppers, they also move in bands, in groups, and there is a way of trapping them by digging the trenches and then killing them. Now, trapping the low adults is very difficult proposition, which needs to be tried. Non-chemical methods are also include creation of a noise or physical disturbances when the locusts are there during daytime. Normally, locusts will take rest during evening time, when the operations are easy to carry out. Now, one more important aspect is using antiphedants or using the biocontrol agents. And some of these biocontrol agents, like fungal antagonists, are tried. Now, if you look at the website, there are some predators. As many as 11 predators are reported to be feeding on locusts. 6 parasites have been identified, and 11 pathogens are reported to cause diseases in locust. But then Metarhizium acridum, or metarhizium, is a very generic antagonist against the insect pest. And Metarhizium acridum is reported to be used or tried in Somalia, and it is found to have some success in controlling the locust. Often there is a talk of using biopesticide, but then the biopesticide takes their own time to be effective, and hence the breeding site are the best places where biopesticide and other methods other than insecticide can be tried or combined. Now, insecticide are sure short way of controlling locust, and in India there are designated, say for instance, designated desert areas where insecticides are approved, and then there are agricultural crops where different sets of insecticides are approved. This is a kind of the spraying that is being done in some months in different places. Mostly this fire brigade is used for locusts, and quite a large number of sprayers were placed into operation. Ideally speaking, you have a spraying equipments like microneer, ULV mask, or microneer or micro ULV sprayers, and it all depends upon their availability. But then these are much better way of spraying to ensure that insecticide is applied only in the affected area or in the target area. These are some of the insecticides which are approved. These are the insecticides which are approved, and I try to calculate their environmental impact quotient by using a Kovacs formula. And we find that some of these insecticides do have a bad or adverse effects. For instance, malathion used as 50 EC will have an environmental impact quotient of 19, which is very high. Some of the insecticides like lambda cyhalothrin is having a very low environmental quotient. But then environmental impact quotient is based upon the toxicological values which were decided abroad or in the developed countries. Now, lambda cyhalothrin is reported to be very allergic, and hence such a we need to be sure that we use the insecticide more discriminately and more safely. Now, these are some of the insecticides reported for scheduled desert area where the agricultural activities are to the minimum. Now, this is a slide that talks about the efficacy of the insecticide, and there is none of the insecticide gave more than 50% kill. But then the parameters of estimating the toxicity or of these insecticide are parameters to know that the insects are killed are very verbose. So we need to be very careful. Now, here is also an interesting slide that shows that in the month of May and June, as much as 184,000 liter of insecticide was used, and most of this insecticide was used was organic phosphates like chlorpyrifos and malathion, to some extent delta methylene, or maybe to some extent, say, lambda cyhalothrin. One interesting insecticide which was also approved was difluvenzuron. You might be aware that it is a chitin synthesis inhibitor, highly safe to the mammals, but then it works only against the nymphs. So this will find use only in the breeding places. Now, say aeroplane spraying is also done in many places or in developed countries. But in India, this is the first time we have tried, or probably the first time drones were used for locust control in many places in India. To some extent, it is successful. Probably you may need to calibrate the drones much better. Now, looking at the pest management of locust pest management or management of locust, you have some environmental issues that are likely to come up, and it is reported there are some reports that the indiscriminate use of insecticide might affect the wildlife or non-target organisms, and this is very true. And this is a very good opportunity for us to study the ecotoxicity or environmental toxicity in relation to the locust management. There is a talk, these are some of the researchable issues that I listed, which are of necessary, like for developing a ICT for prediction of locust swarming. Tapping technology is one good idea where you can use the locust for other purposes. Toxicity evaluation, environmental impact evaluation. Improving the application technology is most needed area where there is a lot of scope. And then integrated pest management approach, especially in a breeding site, is another researchable issue. I also feel that locust can be utilized as a feed, if not food. And this is a diagrammatic presentation that I have got from Zhang et al. 2019, where they have used various approaches for the locust management. Now, here is some of the last slides where locust as a feed or food are reportedly being used elsewhere. Even in a country like Pakistan, the locusts were used for a chicken feed, and there is a great need that we strengthen the locust research. Thank you very much, and I thank the organizers for giving me opportunity for talking about the locust and locust management. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Gujar sir. It was a very enlightening talk by you, and especially you have spoken about the various aspects all in one, and it's
Hello.
on. Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, sir? Okay, so Professor Gujar has spoken about the various aspects of the locust
Yeah. Yes,
biology
yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
and behavior and management and also effect on environment, and because I was myself on a committee which was appointed to document the prey base of GIB, this great Indian bustard here in Maharashtra we have at Nanaj, which we had in Nanaj rather. So there we could observe that food ranges across a very wide traffic level. So we have to be careful also, which for which the need you have advised, and there are various methods which can be used. So thank you very much, sir, for being with us today and enlightening us on the locust issues. Thank you so very much for sparing your time for us.
Thank you very much.
Yes, there are certain
Thank you very
questions
much.
also, sir, for you. So I will take
Yeah. Okay.
two of them. Sir, is there any
Okay. No problem.
population studies in southern Kerala? Did you get the question?
Sorry.
The first question is,
No, I did not get.
the first question is, one of the audience want to ask, is there any locust population study in southern Kerala?
Not to the best of my knowledge.
Okay.
Not.
Okay. And also, there is also a second question by an audience. That person wants to know, can the locust group reproduce during the winter season?
Can locusts be introduced in the winter season?
No. Can reproduce during winter season?
Normally, locust swarms do not come to India during winter season. This is the first time in 2019 locust swarms came to India during winter time. And it is only because of the congenial environment that occurred in their in their breeding places in Africa and Arabia.
Okay. Then the third question is, the locust swarm has been chased away by making noise in Maharashtra. Some farmers also play some sound on DJ to make chase away. What exactly is the mechanism behind this? One of the audience wants to know. You also mentioned the
Yeah.
sound mechanism to chase it away. So they want to know the.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. See, the auditory organs in locust, they have a wider frequency of accepting or hearing the noise, and it is as like us, or it's a better range. So the noise help in scaring them away. Now, what kind of noise should be used? What kind of kilohertz of frequency should be used? What kind of volume should be used? This is a matter of research. Probably, I think this needs to be carried out. This needs to be studied very well, so that we can fix up a very narrow range of kilohertz sound wavelength, and also the pitch of the sound.
There are many appreciations also received from the audience, sir, for your very nice lecture. And there are also several other questions. Due to paucity of time, we are unable to take all of them here, but we will mail them to you so you can answer to the attendees.
No problem. I'll attend to them later. Okay,
We will
or you can send them back to me,
along with
and
the
I'll write to them.
email IDs of the question, those people of those questions who have asked, so you may kindly answer to them.
Okay, no problem. I'll do so.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Namaskar.
No,
So
sure.
now we have another speaker today, a very experienced one. We have Professor Dr. Shamita Kumar, who is also the Vice Principal at the Bharatiya Vidyapeeth Institute of Environment Education and Research. Good afternoon, madam.
Good afternoon, sir. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are now audible. Give me a brief. Let me give a brief introduction about her to the audience. She is a GIS expert who is also a visiting professor since 2013 at the University of Cologne in Germany. She is a Fulbright Nehru awardee in 2013, and she's also chairman of the Geospatial Capacity Building National Geospatial Program, Department of Science and Technology, DST of the Government of India. She is a member of the Executive Council of Maharashtra State Foreign Training Academy at Kundal, Sangli. In this, both of us share a same capacity because they are same organization for being a member. Because I am on the Kundal Academy, I am also on the Board of Governors, and she's on the Executive Council. Then she has a lot of collaborative research with partners from Germany, South Africa, Mexico, and the US. And she has done many projects completed to her credit, and she has written about 1.5 dozen books and other national and international publications. Besides, she has also done several consultancy work. So, welcome to you, madam, and
Thank you.
start your lecture.
So can I share my screen now?
Yes, please.
Is the screen visible?
Not, yeah, now it will start.
Is it visible?
Yes. Yeah, it has come now.
Yeah, okay. So I can start. So good evening, everybody. And it's a pleasure to be here to present the applications of geospatial technologies to biodiversity conservation and management. Now, in this sense, this topic is very different from the previous speakers. I do understand that this is a taxonomic conference, but we do have a large number of applications that we can, geospatial applications that we can apply to taxonomy and to biodiversity conservation in general. And before we go on, I'd just like to give you a small story. During the World War II, before the World War II, women were generally confined to their homes. It was the men who were outside. But the war changed everything because all the able-bodied men, they were at war. And therefore, the women had no choice but to venture out of their houses into office jobs. And when the war was over, the trend continued because people found that women were equally better in performing the jobs that men did. So it was a huge event like that brought about a major change across the world in workforce. And today also we are on the throes of a major change. This pandemic has really changed the way we work, especially digitally. And I think it's this opportunity that we have with digital technologies that includes GIS and geospatial technologies that we should really use, because I think